let's discuss in detail a little bit more about the types of traumas and how we deal with them. So, first trauma, which is the most common, is the physical trauma. And as the word say, physical means it's like due to injury of the body, any broken bones, trauma due to burns, accidents, or sport injuries for that matter, or even if you're hit by a natural disaster like earthquake and floods and you encounter any injury through that as well. So to some degree we all experience physical trauma throughout our lives, and there are times when the trauma is so severe, though it is physical, it is also affects our mental and emotional well-being. So I got a client who was from Mumbai, and she was actually she had polio, so she was on a wheelchair. And one day she was sitting with her brother who lives in Dubai. He was visiting her, and she showed her passport, which was blank. She said, "I have a passport, but I never used it." So the brother felt very bad because she never traveled. She never had any international trip in her life. So that is why the passport was unused. So the brother decided to give her a Dubai trip and brought her here. And both the brother and his wife, they really took her around and gave her a very nice, and they really looked after her very well. So one day they were helping her to get from the wheelchair into the car. And as they lifted her, her shoulder got dislocated. Now, this shoulder dislocation was her very old issue. It happened many times in her life. And unfortunately, it happened here in Dubai, and she was in extreme pain. And she was rushed to hospital where they gave her some treatment. But from this experience, she freaked out. Now, when this case came to us, what we found was from our shamanic journey and from the way we scan a person through BNC miracle method, we found that this trauma was actually coming from a previous birth, and it was due to hurt by loved ones. Now, there is something rigid about when you are hurt by your loved ones. The trauma becomes little more rigid. It doesn't go, and it stays lifetime after lifetimes. And it impacts the same area where the trauma is stored. In her case, it was stored in her shoulder. And such traumas, when you are hurt by loved ones, we call them psychic wounds. The technical word is psychic wounds. So if it is psychic wound, it goes lifetime after lifetime till somebody addresses it. So and that is why no matter how many treatments she had done for shoulder dislocation, it happened many times in her life. So when we healed her psychic wounds, till date, the shoulder dislocation hasn't happened.
So then the other one that we would like to share is mental trauma. So mental comes from the when it impacts your thought forms. Again, you experience the same. The event would be distressing or disturbing or whatever, but it creates that state of helplessness and lack of self-worth. And again, it's the same: accidents, war, death, seeing a person suffer, abuse, violent abuse, neglect from a parent, high conflict environments if you're living in a family where there is fights and constant physical, mental abuse, bullying. So I'd like to share how, this affects, like I did a shamanic journey for a client, and she actually wanted to achieve a GPA of 7.5 in her IELTS exam. So this is an exam she was giving, but she had appeared for an exam about 4 or 5 times, and she couldn't achieve this grade. So she came to me and said what to do. So I did a shamanic journey, and I saw in the shamanic journey that she was just smiling, happy, doing whatever, having fun, and not interested actually in achieving anything because she had this fear of failure. So when I asked where was this fear of failure coming from, and so in shamanic journey, you get the information in metaphors. Not necessarily that person has experienced that. Not necessarily that person has even seen this scenario, but it gives you those imagery that one can understand. So they showed me that she was riding a horse and she was asked to take part in a very prestigious competition, and then she was very good and she was sure to win this race. But then due to politics, somebody came and asked her, do not win, you come second.
Mm.
So she could not do anything, but she had to obey because it was that big regal competition. So she came second. And so this is where in all her life, she would then always choose second best. And I only saw this in the shamanic journey and I didn't know anything, And then also in the shamanic journey, as we said, you get remedies, you get things to do to enhance your healing. So then I saw that she was writing in a book, in a black book, her achievements, being an A-star student, achieving whatever she wanted. And then I gave her that information, and then she told me that she was a triplet. So again, she was again competing with her sisters, right? Because triplets do compete with each
Right.
other, or they have to. There's a little bit of that energy there. Anyway, she got her black book. She wrote about her achievements and everything. And then we also did a BNC miracle method to clear, obviously, the fear of failure, lack of achievement, lack of faith in herself, not believing in herself, and doubt. So we did that part of from the BNC miracle method. And 2 days later, she sat for her IELTS exam. And guess what?
She
She
got a
got a,
7.5.
yeah, she got 7.6.
Oh, she got 7.6. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. And uh, just coming in, people were also writing when you were talking. Vani said, mine is also similar story as Charu's. One brother, one sister, 10 years and 8 years older than me, respectively. We were, or else are we constantly seeking support system without realizing trauma has been there inside? Vani, do you want to rephrase your question? Sharon has said, I had mental trauma caused by my cousin's bullying. It traumatized me for life. And if I've understood Vani's, I think what she's asking is that, irrespective of whether siblings or not, are we looking constantly seeking a support system because without realizing that there is some trauma inside already?
Yes, and we'll show you how basically so this is the beauty about it. We, as we said, we all experience trauma and all different aspects of trauma, but we don't even realize actually how it affects us. And we'll explain that. We want to explain a few different types of trauma, and we'll explain and we'll weave a story around how you don't even know you're in trauma.
So, continuing with the types of traumas, the next trauma that we want to bring to your attention is the emotional trauma, which is also triggered by a life-shattering event that leaves a person so overwhelmed and they are unable to cope up with life's emotion. This can happen when one has financial hardships, if there's big conflict in family, relationship breakup, childhood neglect, long-term illness, and there are so many other ways you can have emotional trauma. But when there is an emotional trauma, then one might experience fear, depression, mood swings, irritability. So it will actually impact your emotions.
And I want to tell you about we want to bring in testimonials as much to show you how, because it's really beautiful how it all ties in. So I got a client who wanted to get married, and so I did a journey, and I saw she was a very scared child, and she had scarce fear of men. She was scared of men actually. And what I perceived from what I saw was either she was abused or she was beaten by her father or she saw this happening. And because either or any of these, it created a very big fear of men. And when I actually gave her this information, she actually told me she saw her father beating her mother. I didn't know that, but then when I saw it in the journey, she told me. So this trauma got stored in her mental mind, and now she's 37 years old. And obviously, she keeps running this picture in the loop that if I get married, I will get beaten by men. So my husband will beat me because that's what she saw. So that is the trauma. So exactly what people are saying, hidden traumas. This is what it is. She didn't even know that that aspect of observing what was happening between parents actually impacted her mentally. And then I also saw in the journey that she was a princess and in a past life, and she was very beautiful. And she was forced into marriage, obviously, at those times, countries, cities, getting,
Aligning.
doing
Yeah.
their
Right.
their togetherness. And she got married to a very ruthless and cruel person who actually locked her up because he did not want to see her, let others see how beautiful she is. And in actual life, she's very conscious about her beauty,
Oh.
and she's so conscious that am I beautiful, and that was actually her focus. She didn't realize the trauma of the parents, but for her it was, I'm not that beautiful, or will people find me? I'm now 37, will they find me beautiful? So that was the journey, and that was the healing part and message she received. And from the BNC miracle method, we also did work on her fear of men, fear of intimacy, and of course the negative imprint of the father, creating fear of marriage for her.
So the next category of trauma is the childhood trauma. So these trauma we experience in childhood, and obviously, so they fall under the childhood trauma category. But the repercussion of childhood trauma can extend to adulthood also. Childhood trauma significantly impacts our emotional and mental development. Childhood trauma can be a result of abuse, which can be physical, emotional, sexual. Again, neglect can happen, witnessing domestic violence, bullying, severe illness, loss of loved ones, or even living in an environment of drug or alcohol abuse, or witnessing natural disaster. They all, if you witness any of these in childhood, can result into a trauma. And I got an interesting case, which is few months back only. This is not a child. She is a adult lady, 24 years of age, now about to get married. She got engaged, but her issue was bedwetting. And I was like, oh, really? So she said it's not like every day or something, but like once in 2 months she would have an episode. So somehow until this age she managed. She did some treatments, nothing happened. There was medically no issue with her, but sometimes these episodes happen. And now her tension was that what if, she has issues after marriage with this bedwetting problem lingering on. So when we did a shamanic journey and BNC miracle method to find the root cause, it linked to her childhood. And it was a simple link. When she was very young, her mother had sent her to some relative, which was down the lane only, to go get something. And on the way back from the relative's house, she lost her way. And she spent 45 minutes looking for her own house. And that became a trauma. Nobody teased her, nothing. She only lost her way. And 45 minutes on road, she felt very traumatized from that. And now what has happened is that when any responsibility is given to her, and if she's unable, if she finds it difficult to handle, then that triggers her energy of hopelessness and that energy of the same trauma, that she can't manage small things. And that results into, that triggers her bedwetting. So simple things, simple traumas, but see how even the physical body gets impacted by this. The next one is the collective trauma, which, as the word says, collective trauma means the event happens and in a large number of people feel the same thing at the same time. But that doesn't mean that everybody will have the same repercussion, because we have different coping mechanism. So everybody will get affected from these traumas. Some people might not even get affected. Some people might get badly impacted. So collective traumas, like, we all experience COVID. So some people, it was for them, it was so traumatic that their health, till date, they are coughing and they are traumatized from that event, that pandemic. And for some people, they have just moved on. So the collective trauma is there. Then the last one that we want to discuss is the generational trauma. Now, generational trauma is a type of trauma that's experienced across the generations of the family or the culture or a group. So earlier, we all know that this world was ruled by rulers and kings, isn't it? There was no democracy or elections. So, bless you. So what
Right.
it means that people at that time went through slavery, went through suppression, and were victimized. Brenda, did it challenge you?
Yeah. Generational trauma, I must have some generational trauma I need to clear.
So yeah, so generational trauma is experienced over the generations in the lineage, and as I'm pointing out, which you all will correlate, that we all, our earlier generations, our ancestors went through the energy of suppression, energy of slavery. They were victimized, and if they got this trauma got locked into their genes, then it is getting passed on to us. And that is where, you all will connect that why you cannot prosper financially even though you have all the potential to
I'm so
It is.
even though
We
you
need to
have all the
head into
potential.
figuring this out very soon. Sorry, Charu, please
Yeah.
continue.
So yeah, even though you have all the potential to become super rich, but because the trauma was encountered or trapped in the genes of your ancestors, and now it is part of generational trauma, is moving on from generation to generation. So that, and it is enclosed in our DNA now. So
So summing it all up, I
Wait,
have
please again.
something to work on generational trauma. Yeah, basically, so to sum it up, physical, mental, emotional, childhood, collective, generational, they're all intertwined, combined together. So we experience either mental, generational, or mental, emotional, collective, whatever we have gone through. But basically, trauma happens when we are frightened, under threat, humiliated, rejected, abandoned, invalidated, felt unsafe or felt unsupported, or felt trapped, ashamed, powerless. So that is what. So what the next question, like what I would like to know is like, where do you think that traumas are stored? Like audience, like what do you all think? Where do you all think audience, where do we
Let's
store our traumas?
right. Let's see what they write in. And Charu, in your last sentence, I think pretty much you said it all gets stored in the DNA. You want to just little
Don't
bit
give out
elaborate
the,
on that? Sorry.
don't give out our secret.
So why I'm asking you this is because I think earlier there was somebody who asked, what is shamanism? Because if DNA science, it's in the body. So what is shamanism? What's the correlation? Why is this happening? Yes, we've heard all your stories, but now to put this in together as well, I will come to that again. Um, Vandana says in your gut, Sharan says in the body cells. And this is the answers that has come in right now. And body cells, wait, like you said, DNA, right? It's stored in the body. What you were asking is for people to mention if they feel it's stored in any particular place for themselves, not in the world where it could be stored. Correct?
Yeah.
Were you
Yeah.
asking? All right. So people, do you feel it stored anywhere in particular? For example, shoulders, your neck, your back, your knees, gut. Yes. So what? Stomach, right? Do you feel it? Do you the palpitation of the heart that you say? So is it stored in your heart? That's what you want to ask, right? Okay. So there, it's coming in. Shoulder and neck, says Akshita. Vani says throat. Seema says my responses. Please put your responses down. And if you're talking about the quiz, no. Answer the questions right now. Okay. All right. So yeah, there's Akshita and Vani have written in with very specifics, shoulder and neck and throat.
Yeah, so basically we store our traumas in various different places, and that's where we are actually uh, we feel it and we know, oh, I hurt my neck, or I hurt my shoulder, or I fell down, or my knee has hurt.